And I know that there's some of you that have joined us that know me and others that don't. My name is Mike Connor. I live just outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in the U.S. Uh, been involved with Insight for over 30 years. Have been a lead facilitator for between 20 and 25 years. And just want to say, first of all, a big thank you for the invitation to have the opportunity to spend some time with you. It's a treat for me, and hopefully you'll find that it'll be valuable in terms of your time and also enjoyable as we go through our workshop today, which is from intention to manifestation, bringing your dreams to life. And the intent of this workshop is curious. I know I don't. You can either use your reactions or just raise your hand. How many of you were in Jenny's workshop that she just did? How many were in Jenny's? I'm just curious. Just want to kind of take a look around. So, quite a few of you were in Jenny Frazier's workshop. What we're going to be doing here is kind of building off some of what Jenny kind of facilitated you into, and kind of take a next step in the process of what does it mean to actually take our dreams, take our visions, and manifest them. Actually, bring them into the world. Because I know a number of us have intentions, we have dreams, we have visions of what we want in our life, or what we want more of in our life. And for some of us, we have manifested some of those things, and maybe there's some of those things that we're struggling with. So that's really the intent of our time together. Before I get started, it'd be really helpful for me to know, and team, if you would, I'd love to pull up a poll. And this is going to give me some feedback around whether you've actually are an Insight, what we call a graduate, which means you've completed the Insight 1 seminar, or if you're a guest, that means you have not completed the Insight 1. And it just gives me a flavor of kind of what the mix is, because I want to be thoughtful about some of what I reference, and not use terminology or jargon without explaining what I'm speaking to, for those of you that are maybe new to Insight or haven't had a chance to go through our core programs. So right now I'm looking at the input. Actually, I don't know what percent. It looks like most people have actually weighed in. It looks about like 2/3, 1/3, which is actually really nice. 70%, 30%. Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you for that feedback. Those of you that are that haven't been through an Insight 1 seminar, or maybe new to Insight, I particularly want to thank you for joining us here. Usually you're on because someone that you know invited you to come. And I will do my very best to, as I mentioned, to communicate and acknowledge some of maybe some of the terminology and models that I speak to in a way that hopefully will allow you to get as much value as possible. Those of you who are Insight graduates, welcome back. And my one kind of communication to you is be careful about thinking you know what I'm speaking about. Even those of you who have been on this journey a long time, because one of the things that I have, and I'm sure those of us who have been doing this work for a long time, is it's not about the mental knowing of a model. It's not about being able to spit it out and talk about it. It's about how do we embrace this? How do we live it? How do we bring it into our life? That's really the core intent behind Insight, is how do we connect to the loving, our kind of sense of loving, our sense of the core purpose in our heart. And we'll speak about that a little bit more. But then how do we live that? How do we live that day in, day out in our life? So my invitation is to really embrace, if you hear something that sounds repetitive to maybe something that maybe Jenny covered or you recognize from a seminar you've done, ask yourself here and now, right now, how can I apply this? How might I use it? So my invitation. What I'd like to do is just give you a kind of high-level overview. It gives you a sense of how we've been spending our time, which is I'm going to share a little bit about kind of setting a little bit of a structure. Then we're going to look at some of the ways that maybe we might block some of those things that we want in our life. And one of the things I'm going to first ask you to do is think about what are some of the things you really want or want more of in your life. Because I want each one of you to be working with something that matters to you. I don't want this to be theoretical, like, oh, but I want it to be, here's something I actually want or want more of in my life. So I want you to be thinking about that as we move in. We're going to have some time after we look at some of the areas where we might kind of block some of those things by getting into some smaller breakout sessions where you're going to have a chance to connect with one another and kind of work that. Then we're going to come back out and explore what are some of the tools that we can really leverage for manifesting some of those things. I'm going to give you another chance to go into breakout, explore some of those things specific to the area that you're working on. And then we're going to come off the back end and just look at what are some of the next steps and commitments you want to make to yourself in terms of moving forward. So that gives you a bit of a flavor. Here's a little framing, an overall framing for our time together here. And I find this to be a very powerful statement. We don't get what we want in life. We get who we are. We don't get what we want in life. We get who we are. And now, to some of us that makes sense. To some of us that might feel like, what is he talking about? But it invites us into a reference point. And I'm going to maybe jump kind of into something that might, may or may land or may or may not make sense to some of you. But in my 30 years of work with Insight and other work, and I know many of you have dedicated a fair amount of time to self-awareness and your consciousness and a sense of purpose and how you can live a meaningful life. I've come to recognize in a very rough sense, there's kind of two paradigms in which we can think of ourselves in life. We can think of ourselves as kind of small people live in a body in a big universe. And in that paradigm, it feels like I'm pretty small and pretty powerless. And there's another paradigm that can kind of break the mold of our thinking, which is our world is really a mirror of us. That when we look out, we actually see ourselves. And that can be a little bit mind-blowing, but I found it to be very powerful and something that I try to practice and come back to time and time again. So one of the things you're going to see as we go through the journey is that the world outside of me, what I manifest outside of me, can't be different than who I am. Like, I can't create really something outside of me. It doesn't reflect who I am. And so just kind of hold that as we move forward. Why don't we move on to the next slide, if we would? And those of you who are familiar with our work know that we like to create a container to ensure that everybody individually and all of us collectively get the most value out of our time together. Those of you that are new to our work, this is simply a little bit of frame setting or structure that we create to ensure value. And I'm just going to go through what I call a core ground rule that I'm going to invite you to embrace, and then a couple of agreements I'm going to ask you to make so that we can, in fact, get the greatest amount of value as we connect. Ground rule is use everything for your upliftment, growth, and learning. Again, those of you that are familiar with our work recognize this. It's often been said that if I or any one of us embrace this fully, just embrace this one ground rule fully in our life, we're going to be far ahead of the game. And everything means the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, what I judge, what I accept, how can I use it all for my learning, all for my upliftment, all for my growth? Then the agreements I'm going to ask for is, one is to be present and participate. One of the ways you can do this is, one of the things that was mentioned is really good Zoom or online etiquette. Invite you to turn your cameras on, keep yourself on mute if you're not kind of communicating. When we go into breakouts in particular, it'll be nice to have your cameras on, and then you can go off mute, obviously, in terms of sharing so you can connect with one another. Try to eliminate distractions around you so you can be fully present and available. I know some of us sometimes kind of want to listen in while we're doing other things, and we can get away with that. I mean, nobody's going to call that out, but you may miss something that could be quite powerful for you if you kind of allow yourself to get distracted as we go through our journey. Secondly, be honest with yourself. Just really try to notice, and when we say honest, it's like you can have any reaction to anything that I cover or we go through. There's nothing wrong with kind of having resistance, or if I say something, you have a different point of view, or something you get excited about one thing, but you get agitated or you get bored. All of that is fine. The invitation is just notice what's showing up, be honest with yourself, and be open in terms of our learning journey. Say, listen with your heart. Uh, Certainly, you can listen to me with your heart, but this is particularly for when you're in your breakout groups. One of the most powerful spaces we can create for one another is through the power of our listening, and listening from a place of compassion, a place that allows others to fully connect into who they are and feel safe enough to kind of share what feels real to them. And then off the back of that is confidentiality. So I'm going to ask that anything gets shared. Anything that I share, I don't consider confidential. So I don't. But I would say this again has to do more with the breakout sessions. The breakout sessions is a chance where you're going to be working with one another, having a chance to talk about some of your personal journeys. I really ask that you hold confidentiality in that space. Whatever gets shared there, that you can kind of use anything for your learning, but please don't share what somebody else has shared. And I already talked about this one, which is a Zoom etiquette. Videos on, muted, unless you're sharing. Try to, and here's one other thing I'd ask is don't use the chat unless we instruct you to otherwise. So I just ask you to kind of minimize, because what I notice is that when you start using the chat, you can actually, people can get kind of distracted and start reading what's happening in the chat. I ask you not to use the chat unless we instruct you to do otherwise, please. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have you just sit back for a moment, if you would, and maybe if you see me, we can take the slides now. I'm actually starting to close my eyes, and if you're able to, I'm going to have you just sit back, get comfortable in your seat. If you're able to, if you choose to, just close your eyes or lower your gaze. And we can just bring that music up just a little louder, if we would. And I'd like you to go ahead and take a deep breath in. And let it go. Go ahead and take another deep breath in and hold it just for a moment. And release. Notice the inhale and the exhale of your breath. Maybe allowing your breath to soften and deepen. And as you do, allow your focus to move down, if you can, into your heart. And then ask yourself, what do I want? What's something I want in my life or want more of in my life? And let your heart answer that. And it's okay for that wanting to be things that are both physical and non-physical. You can want things like joy and peace, confidence and clarity. And you can also want things like a new car and more money, a loving relationship, a job with more creativity, more free time, better physical health. You can want things for the people in your life that you love. And notice as some of those things begin to emerge, which ones feel most on purpose for you right now in your life. And again, listen to your heart and let it answer. And if you do have one that includes a physical manifestation, bring that one forward in particular. If you'd like to work with, ideally, something you'd like to have more of in your life that you can actually see and touch and feel, connect with, even though we'll also be working with those non-physical aspects, those things that matter to us in terms of the experiences that we're wanting. And then go ahead and take one more deep breath in. Let it go. And then gradually begin to come back. And we can bring the music down. And here's what I'm going to invite you to do is I'd like you to just go to the chat for a moment and briefly put in what's one thing you'd like to have or have more of in your life. Just go ahead and go to the chat. And I am giving the instruction now that you can use a chat. Joy, health, more money, mucho dinero, financial, meaningful work, connection, happiness, a great body, meaningful work, love and relationships, love and a soulmate, kindness, community, peace, more money, accomplish things. Wow, they're moving through fast and furious. I'd like to have a dog. Sometimes I like to give you my dog. I love him dearly, but when he gets barking, joy, gratefulness, a new job, more money, wonderful, a peaceful home, a project, financial stability, time to relax with my wife, a house by the sea, self-worth. Wonderful. I'm not going to read them all. This is great. And they connect through the range from the physical to the non-physical. And we're going to look at the relationship between those two as we go through the journey. So I'm going to invite us, can we bring up the slides if we could again, please? And we can move on to the next slide if you would. I'm going to be talking to you about a model called the Three Selves. Those of you who have done the Insight One, been involved in the Insight community, you're quite familiar with this model. Those of you that are new, maybe you've been exposed to it. It's not unlike the Three Selves are what we call the high self, the conscious self, and the basic self. And I'm going to speak through each one of those in a moment. And then we're going to link it over to why I'm using this model when it comes to moving from intention to manifestation. Again, those of you that are new to this, I'll do my best to kind of clarify. And I'm also going to do my best. One of the things I didn't ask is how many of you is English not your primary language? So I'll try not to go too quickly so that you can kind of take in what I'm speaking to. I will say, I'm a believer that when the three selves are aligned, that we can manifest, we can create the things we really want in our life. And we're going to explore looking at the three selves and noticing where do we block the things that we say we want in our life. Because I'm a big believer that if you want something, it's already been given to you. The universe is infinitely abundant. It's already there, but what part of me isn't allowing it in? So let me speak through and kind of move through the three selves. Three selves seem odd. There's other models that are similar: mind, body, spirit. I'm sure many of you or most of you have heard of it. This is not dissimilar from that, similar things in psychology, but we're going to use this model. The high self, when we talk about it in Insight, is a space in which we get inspiration, intuition, insight. It often provides us a sense of purpose and meaningfulness in our life, provides broader perspective, and really can kind of inform us in terms of guiding us towards what's most meaningful for us, what's most on purpose for us, and tends to try to communicate. I say try to, it does communicate. We don't always listen in terms of kind of insight and intuition. It also tends to inspire us in terms of what's really meaningful for us. We can go on to the next slide, please. From the high self, we go to what we call the conscious self. Conscious self is just kind of more, if we kind of go kind of down, we go kind of move into more of the mental space. This is where we hold our learned behaviors and our concepts. We have where we, if we judge, or we have shoulds or judgments, we have expectations. And this is also where our beliefs sit. A whole series and a whole network of beliefs that we've gained over the course of a lifetime, some of which are expansive and support us to have more of what we want, and some of which limit us and actually get in the way of us having more of what we want. And those of you who have done Insight know that we do a lot of work around beliefs, and give a real deep dive in our Insight 2 seminar in terms of really diving into our beliefs, those that both limit us and really developing more of those that really support our expansion. And then we move into what we call the basic self. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. Basic self was now, we kind of, high self is kind of moving down through our kind of thinking and beliefs. And the basic self is really sits in our body. So part of us, it's physical, it's our physical energy. It thinks about our physical survival. It has insight, and I'll talk more about where it gets insight from, but it's very literal. And we can think about it living in our body. And as I mentioned before, I'm a big believer that when these three aspects of ourself are aligned, we manifest the things we most want in our life. So what I'd like to do next is move on to the next slide, if we could. And what I'm going to do is look at, and we can just move all the way through the slide. So I'm not going to, it looks like it has several aspects to it. Just if you can move, Mark, and put the whole slide on, including the questions on the, there we go. One of the things I'm going to do is, I have this kind of wild thing moving through the screen. Never know what you're going to get, but it's a beautiful thing because it's talking about alignment in terms of our three selves. I'm going to read through this. As I read through this, I want you to think about that aspect of your life that you want more of, the thing you want to manifest more of. And I want to have you consider if there's a possible block as we go through this, what might that be? Where might you be blocking your manifestation? Okay. I'm going to start from the high self. The high self really asks, like, why do you want it? You know, is it aligned with your greater sense of purpose, or if your heart's purpose doesn't make sense, with your core values, or with like a greater good? The high self is a part of us that recognizes that we're not alone on this planet, that we're connected to others. And so oftentimes its sense of purpose will have something that involves others in some way, involves making a contribution to others, whether that be our family, whether it be our community, whether it be somebody else in our life. So this one really has to do with, have you spent time really exploring your sense of purpose? What's meaningful, what's truly meaningful for you? Or is there some more work for you to do in that space? Because sometimes what will happen is we'll say we want something, and if it's not really aligned with our sense of purpose and what is really meaningful for us, one of two things can happen. One, we don't manifest it because some part of us is wise enough to know that if we get it, it's actually counterproductive. Or two, we'll end up manifesting it, and it's actually going to, not be what we want. It's going to actually create it. So there might be some work in this space around kind of connecting to your sense of purpose. And then I have a question here, which is, are you listening? So the high self is constantly working to give us messages around those things that we say we want more of in our life. But to be able to recognize the guidance of the high self, we have to be able to hear it. What are some of the things that do that? Meditation, slowing down, recognizing, noticing the intuition. So these are some of the areas that, again, I'm inviting you to notice is there a potential block here? Am I not clear in terms of my sense of purpose, or am I not really tuning in to listen to what the messages are here? If we move down to the conscious self, two big areas I want to focus on here. One is your intention clear and inspiring? So have you really clarified have you really gotten clear about your intention? Because, we can say like, oh, I want a new relationship, right? Be careful. The universe can give you lots of new relationships, but it may not be the kind of relationship you want. So Are you clear about that relationship? What kind of relationship do you want? Can you get clear? So have you been clear about that? And when you think of that intention, does it uplift you? Does it inspire you? Does it bring forward something that feels like it's purposeful for you? And then the second piece that we're going to spend more time with as we move forward is, what are kind of, if you look at the beliefs you're holding about yourself and about the world and about the people around you, what are some of the expansive beliefs? And in our first kind of step, what are maybe some of the limitations or limiting beliefs that you might be holding about yourself and about the world? If you're going for more money, do you have some beliefs that you're not the kind of person that makes a lot of money, or it takes a certain kind of education to make money? Or if I make a lot of money, I'm not going to be a spiritual or a person of high integrity, a belief that people with lots of money get corrupted, or maybe I feel like because I'm a certain gender or race, I can't make money. I just want to have you begin to notice, are there any beliefs? I'm just using money as an example. Same thing can be done in a relationship. I'm not attractive, or people don't like me, or I can't find a soulmate because I won't be understood, or or even the fear to kind of dream your dream. Some of us have been disappointed enough that we're afraid to be clear of our intention. It's almost like we're hesitant to go back into space again for fear of kind of experiencing some of that disappointment and discouragement that can happen over the course of a lifetime. So again, I want you to kind of consider that. And then on the basic self level, on the physical level, we're asking the question, does your basic self trust you? So the first one is, the basic self provides the energy for you to go for what you want. It provides the energy. Those of you who have done insight, you'll understand what I'm speaking to. It provides the energy, but if it's not clear, if it doesn't trust you, which means do you keep your agreements? Do you keep your word? Because if you say something and you follow through, you build trust with your basic self. If you say something and you don't follow through, you lose the trust of your basic self. And after a period of time, it stops giving you the energy to move towards what you want. So how is your relationship with your basic self? Does it trust you? Are you good? Do you actually follow through on what you say you're going to do? Because if you don't, as soon as you say you want something, your basic self doesn't believe you, and then doesn't give you the energy you need to move forward. And finally, are you in action? Are you in action? Or are you just simply holding an intention more on that kind of conscious self level? Two values of being in action. There's the obvious action of, if I want to go get that book off the shelf, I walk over and get it, and I've got a book. Maybe some really high evolved people can have the book come to them. I'm not at that space, and probably most of us aren't. I need to go get it, right? I need to be in action. Another thing about action is it lets all of you know that you want the thing you say you want. So if you say you want a relationship, but you're not willing to go on dates, or not willing to reach out to others, or take some action, there's a part of me that doesn't believe me. There's a part of, when I think of my three selves, there's a part of me that doesn't believe I want that intention, because my actions don't reflect my desired outcome. So not only is there a go get it, but there is a reinforcing of the belief that you actually want the thing you're speaking to. Okay, so there's probably enough speaking for me. I'm going to move us forward onto the next slide, please. And we can keep going, please. A little saying that may or may not make sense to you. You can only commit to what you're already committed to. Sounds like doublespeak, but what it really reflects is, you're going to have a really difficult time committing to any intention if it's not aligned with your heart's purpose, if it's not aligned with your core values. So if it doesn't hold a sense of real meaning for you, it's going to be really hard to commit to something and stay with it. Whether that be a relationship, whether it means going for more money, whether it means, having a new car, whether it means having more time in your life, whether it means good, more vibrant health, aligning it to who you are. Remember, you don't get what you want in life, you get who you are. So what I'm going to do is move to the next slide and set you up to go into some breakouts. So in a moment, we're going to put you into breakouts with two other people. Okay. You're going to have 5 minutes each. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to put in the chat those messages from the Three Selves. So our assisting team is going to put some of those questions I had, and you're each going to get 5 minutes, and you're going to have a chance to kind of notice and explore around the particular thing or areas that you want to manifest more of in your life. Where might be your blocks? I want you to think about, where might I need to put more focus to bring forward the things I say want more in my life? Is it more in the high self area? Is it more that kind of really tuning into my sense of purpose, or creating more opportunity to listen more? Is it more in the conscious self area? Am I really clear with my intention? Or are there beliefs? What are some of the beliefs that might be blocking me? Or is it on the basic self and physical level, which is, am I in action around this? And does my basic self trust me? Do I have a good relationship of trust? Do I keep my word consistently? So those are kind of the areas. I'm going to ask you to identify a timekeeper when you get in, so that each person gets 5 minutes. So introduce yourself, say hello, get a timekeeper, and then keep time. When it's your turn, it's your turn. So the other two people, all you're doing is listening. Now, if you want to engage others, you want to get some of their feedback, you can ask them for some of their reflections, but there's no advice giving. If somebody asks for their input, I want you to reflect back to the Three Selves model and ask questions like, have you looked at the basic self, or have you considered your beliefs? Are there any other beliefs that might be blocking you? So stay within the model, no advice giving. And again, when it's somebody's turn, it's your turn. You can speak for the whole 5 minutes and kind of explore out loud. You can ask the other two for input if it's helpful. But once the 5 minutes are complete, move on to the next person, so they have a full 5 minutes. Keep time, so all three of you get the full 5 minutes. Listen with your heart. Create a space for one another that you can be open, you can be vulnerable, and you can really look more deeply in terms of yourself and in terms of some of the opportunities you have to manifest more of what you want in your life. So I'm hoping that there was clarity there. You can see that in the chat are the statements that came from the three selves model that I just mentioned. So I think it's going to be hard to take any questions. I'm going to assume you're in good shape. If anything happens as we're going through, if you get knocked out, just come back into the Zoom link and we'll make sure you get back into your group. So I'm going to ask our assisting team to put you out into your breakout rooms. Get 5 minutes each. We'll see you back when you're complete. Come on back. Just give me a quick raise of your hand if you felt like you had enough time to kind of consider the invitation of where some of your blocks might be, and also a chance to kind of connect with and begin to appreciate other people that you had spent some time with. So it felt good? Just, yeah, okay. Thank you. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to just go into the chat, if you would, once again. Please activate the chat and briefly say, what's one area where you feel like, here's an area I'd like to place some more focus in? This might be an area that I'm blocking in terms of that alignment of the three selves. What was one or two, actually just name one for now. There might be more than one, but name one area that for you notice showed up in terms of, here's an area where I might be blocking. Listening to my intuition, honesty with myself, basic self, clear intention, having more respect, limiting beliefs, building trust with the basic self, beliefs, energy, judgment, right? Comfort, all right? Yeah, comfort zone, right? Staying focused, procrastination, trusting the part of me that dreams, being gentle with myself, not recognizing my own qualities, knowing what my heart wants, expectations, taking a first step, nice, not knowing how, There's a lot of good stuff in here. Oh, I wish we had like another 3 hours. We could dive into so many good things here. So this would be another place where I would invite, as you're looking at these, invite you to consider the upcoming Insight One, because whether you're a graduate or a guest, there's so much of what you're referencing here that we go more deeply into in terms of the Insight One. And I think many of you might find a real opportunity to make a breakthrough with some of the things you're working with. Let's see if we, here's another thing you can do, not now, but when we finish, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for kind of traditional sharing. And those of you who have done Insight know that sometimes we create space for sharing with the facilitator. There won't be much of that or probably any of that time on this workshop. If you have a real pressing question or something that you feel like is not getting addressed, when we finish the workshop today, if you want to put that into the chat, would love to pull those out. Ruth might want to dive into some of those in her workshop that's coming up. And again, it might be questions that would be perfect in terms of taking into the Insight One. So if you got something that feels like it's pressing and it feels like I can't seem to, I need a little help in this space, not now, but when we finish today, put it in the chat. We're going to kind of collect those, and it might feed a little bit of the work that Ruth's going to be doing in her workshop, and certainly some of the things that we might work with in the Insight One. So I'm going to ask if we could bring the slides back on, please. And move to the next one, please. Some of you maybe have seen this before. It's called the growth line versus, or the learning line versus the goal line. Learning line versus goal line. So when we want to manifest something, so over here I have ambition or vision. On the other side, I have current reality. And so I'm here and I say, I want that goal. There's a goal I want, okay? I want a new car. I want more money. I want a great relationship, okay? The goal line is the part of us that says, oh man, straight line. The quicker I can get there, the better. Give me a new house tomorrow. Give me that, let that beautiful relationship show up for me, on the next time I go on to a dating site, whatever it might be. That's kind of our goal line thinking. The learning line says, it's going to bring me back to where I started. We don't get what we want in life. We get who we are. The learning line says, this is who I need to become to manifest this result. That my outer world can't look different from my inner world. And so the learning line takes us into various experiences and opportunities to learn lessons. So I become a match for the thing I say I want in my life. I can't have something in my life that isn't a match for who I am. So what are the lessons I need to learn to become a match for what it is I say I want? And this helps us to kind of begin to identify when life doesn't show up the way we think we want it to, or something I'm impatient for an outcome. I can ask myself, what's the lesson what's the lesson? How do I need to develop or learn or grow to become the person who's a match for that goal I'm looking for? We can move on to the next slide, please. What you focus on expands. Another one of a real simple reminder for me, because I have the power in any moment to determine where I place my focus. We sometimes say in Insight, there's a life energy. That life energy comes through us. It's a neutral energy. We determine where that energy goes. That energy is coming into us. We get to determine where that energy goes. Does it go into expansive places? Does it come through my heart? Does it imagine things in terms of possibility? Or does it kind of go more into those limiting beliefs that I'm not worthy, or I'll never make it, or I'll be disappointed again, or I live in a world that there can never be loving on the planet because of all the divisiveness, or whether it's a belief about you or about the world we live in. Where am I placing my focus? Because one of the most powerful things, and we'll talk about this in just a moment, that you have at your disposal is your imagination. One of the most powerful things is your imagination. Are you using it consciously? Are you thinking about where you place your focus? Because what you focus on, there's a part of us, and those of you who have done Insight know this, there's a part of us that doesn't know the difference between quote unquote reality and something that's vividly imagined that we actually focus upon in our imagination. And when we focus on something enough, we actually invite that or begin to bring that forward. So we can go on to the next slide, please. Okay, there's quite a bit on this one. So I'm going to run through it. I don't want you to try to gobble this all up. This is kind of there's a lot here. What I want you to do, if you would with me, is come back to the thing you said you want more of. Come back to the last process you just did in terms of noticing where you might place more focus: high self, conscious self, basic self. Is it more in that space of kind of really identifying your sense of purpose and what's meaningful for you? Is it, really taking time to listen to the high self? Is it more in the place of your clarity of intention? Is it more in the space of your belief systems? Or is it more in the place of the physical? Are you in action, and do you have a trusting relationship with your basic self? So you're going to see that the first three here are a little bit more in the high self area. The next two are more in the conscious self area, and the last three are more in the basic self area. I'm going to read through these. If you want to, if you're feeling like you're getting a little bit of zoomed out by looking at the screen, you can close your eyes as I speak, or you can follow me on the screen, whatever works for you. 1, know yourself. Dedicate some time, whether that be within insight or beyond insight, asking the question of, what's my purpose? Like, why am I here on the planet? What's my heart's purpose? What matters most to me? And you already know your purpose. You're not creating something. It's already there. It's in you. All you have to do is really look at the clues in terms of what gives you energy, what uplifts you, what inspires you. When you're doing something, when you lose track of time, when you do things that feel like, gosh, I could do this the rest of my life and I'd be happy. It usually involves something that isn't just for you. It usually involves some kind of contribution or action that reaches out beyond you. Doesn't have to be perfectly worded. You can start with whatever you know. And again, if this doesn't make sense to you, start with what you would identify as your core values. What are some things that you really feel like, when I show up at my best, when I feel like I'm being true to myself, what are some of those values? The next one down is this kind of distinction we sometimes make in the Insight One as we go through the Insight journey, which is alone or all one. Do you want it for you, just for you? Or do you recognize that there's an interconnectivity between us? And so are you in it for us? Is there a contribution you want to make? There's something very powerful about recognizing that when we give to somebody else, we also receive. I was thinking about bringing in what we call our cycle of abundance from Insight. I chose not to, but when we give, and we give unconditionally, not expecting something back, it's very powerful how we then receive something in the process when we open to it. So what's the context you're holding around your kind of higher self aspect in terms of your purpose or mission? 3, I said awareness. Awareness could encompass all of this. And at the heart of Insight is awareness. Do I recognize? Do I see? Can I bring in? Here I brought it in with the awareness of the listening. Am I aware of what the high self is telling me? But I can also bring it down into my conscious self as, am I aware of where my limiting beliefs are playing out versus my expanded beliefs? If we move down into number 4, clarity of intention. If you want something, don't just say, I want a new car, put some clarity to it. What make and model, by when, get some real clarity in terms of, and here's where I'm going to invite you with your intention, bring in the experience you want from that. So you can still hold the vision of the car, that beautiful red convertible, but why do you want it? So could you see yourself in the car, like having a great time flying down the road? Or do you want a sense of adventure from it? Do you want a sense of freedom? I can get in the car, I can cruise around the countryside. Do you want it because you want to be able to get to work? So maybe it connects into a sense of your meaning in terms of being able to contribute in terms of your work. So look at what the experience is. You want the new house, you want the relationship. Notice the experience. If I want a relationship, Do I want that for intimacy? Do I want it for loving connection? Do I want it as a chance to contribute intimately to somebody else's life? Bring in that experience along with the clarity on the, so you're connecting the basic self, the clarity on the physical level, with the experience, which raises you up into the conscious and high self in terms of your clarity of intention. Let me move down to some of the beliefs. There's a lot here. A lot of you are familiar with these. I work most of these almost all the time. I have a practice every morning that I call my inner work. And it includes some affirmations, some visualizations, a little bit of meditation, some gratitude, some forgiveness. It actually mixes in all those things. So affirmations and visualizations, that's using your imagination. That's saying in the present moment and using that part of you that doesn't know the distinction between what's real and not real, and beginning to convince yourself that you are and you have the things that you want more of, stated in the present moment and brought into experience. Meditation is a space where we can begin to open more to that high self aspect, and some that quiets us, that listens to the guide, that guide that wants to bring us to that that's most meaningful. Gratitude's a wonderful practice, particularly around having more abundance, because when we're grateful what we have in our life, we realize how abundant we already are. Gratitude also tends to lift our consciousness out of judgment and into a place of greater perspective and more into that higher self space. And forgiveness does the same thing. Forgiveness brings in this quality of acknowledging we're human. If you look at that learning line, that's the human line, right? That's the learning line that I just talked on. That's like the learning life. Oh, I'm over here. Oh my gosh, how did I end up here? I thought I wanted to be over here. What am I doing down here? And so how do we bring some compassion to ourselves and also to others around us, because we're all on the human journey, which allows us to lift out of judgment, because one of you mentioned that sometimes judgment is the thing that can get in there and block us in terms of having more of what we want. And the outer level, these are kind of more inner, and the outer level, act as if, that's stepping right into, go sit in that car, go try on that suit, step into and ask that person on the date, can you step into and embrace on the physical level more of what you say you want? This can be quite confronting to your comfort zone, I'm just letting you know, but it can also be an accelerated process to shifting our beliefs, giving away or letting go. Many of us are still holding on to beliefs or things on the outer level that haven't provided the space for the new thing to come forward. So do you have stuff around you or still holding on to old relationships or the things that no longer serve you? What's to be let go of so you can create the space for something new? Asking for help. So a lot of us are afraid to ask for help. A lot of us are very independent in our thinking and don't recognize we have a whole universe of people and resources around us that can help us if we're willing to go out, be a bit vulnerable, and ask for help in terms of the journey. Modeling. Modeling is noticing somebody who has the thing that you want or is living or experiencing the thing you want more of. Oftentimes we collect together with people that are more like us. I'm suggesting go find someone who's not like you in a way that you want more of and spend time with them. And then begin to notice what they're doing and begin to embrace and model how they're approaching things. Tithing. Tithing has to do more with money, but it's another abundance consciousness. It's just simply the process of giving back to whatever you consider the source. And in so doing, reinforcing that you have more than enough. It builds a belief inside of you that you have more than enough. And then money magnet is a little way to kind of let your basic self, that physical part of you, know that you have money, you have cash. I have this little thing, I don't know if you can see me, I'm not sure, but I have this little bunch of bills, right? These are American notes. On the top is $100 bill. So you see that, right? Underneath it, I have a whole bunch of other bills. These happen to be ones, but my basic self isn't supposed to know that. So I actually put this in my office like this, and it's sitting like this wad of nice money, right? I never spend it. I never use it. It just sits here. And so when I look at it, it's like, man, that's a wad of $100 bills. Man, I got some freaking cash, And so what's the beauty of that? It reinforces that I have money. It also gives my basic self a feeling like I have. So then I can then come out of the belief that I have more than enough. Because if I can I get who I am, not what I want, but if I believe I have and I have more than enough, I tend to get more. I tend to get more of that in my life. All right, I'm going to keep moving here. We're now at the basic self level. A lot of you talked about self-trust. You know, if you want one place to start on the journey, start with making little agreements and keeping them, making little agreements, keeping them day in, day out, day in, day out. Build that trust with your basic self. Stretching your comfort zone. Um, you know what I'm talking about? You know, how do you really work with those limiting beliefs that come in and stop you when it's time to take action? You know, can you build the muscle of kind of stretching your comfort zone on a daily basis? And finally, high involvement, low attachment. Can you be involved with and hold clarity of your intention, but not get too attached with how it's going to show up or when it's going to show up? Because as soon as I get that attachment, I begin to potentially block various ways that I could manifest the thing I'm actually looking for. In Insight, we say for any one intention, there's many methods. So allow yourself to open up to the many methods that might be available to you. Okay, a lot of information there. Let's move on to the next slide, please, so we can keep moving. I'm going to put you into breakouts now. And what I'm going to do once again is I'm going to ask the assisting team to go ahead and put those tools for manifestation into the chat so you can reference them. We're not going to have as much time here. You're each going to have 3 minutes. Assisting team, I think I'm going to give about 12 minutes total for this. So, you know, so people have a little time to introduce themselves. Come in, get a timekeeper, 3 minutes each for you to share what are one or two of those tools for manifestation that you feel that you can apply, and then really make a commitment to take action on. So I really want you to think about one or two that feel most applicable to you and get clear on the next action so you can leave this workshop moving in a direction that really serves you. Okay, let's go. Welcome back. There used to be a song. Whenever I say welcome back, I think of Welcome Back, Cotter. I don't even know if you had that show in the UK. Probably not. Was a show for, it also dates me dramatically in terms of my age, but anyway, welcome back. Hope you had a chance to connect with and share a bit about kind of what you're taking forward right now, because my hope is that not only did you gain a little bit of insight from our time together, but the basic self, it's really important that if we want to get the basic self moving and engage it, we have to have real clarity in terms of next action. If it's kind of a next action is like, I'm going to be less judgmental, the basic self is, I have no idea what you're talking about. If it says, you know, on by this date, or I'm going to start to do this practice, or I'm going to build this affirmation, or I'm going to attend this workshop, or I'm going to do the Insight One, or I'm going to, those are the kind of things where the basic self is really clear. It's like, okay, I can put energy behind that because there's enough clarity there for me to take action on it. It's not to say not to have intentions to be more loving and to be kinder or to be more confident. But if you want to engage the basic self, you've got to put something concrete into action to move forward. And I know a lot of us sometimes that's the place where we kind of, so what I'd like you to do is just quickly go into the chat and just share your specific next action. I'd like you to go in and just claim it. I'm not going to hold you to account, but hopefully you will, or you'll find someone that'll support you in that area. And let's just see some of what your specific next actions are. Meditate on intention, bring clarity to intentions. All right. Restart my gratitude journal. Excellent. Dance every day. Love it. Make small agreements with myself. Asking, create an affirmation, make small agreements. Get clear on my intention, experience gratitude, clarity of intentions, visualize, laugh, opening the book and write. There we go. Yes, opening the book and write. Pray, ask for guidance. Love it. Affirmation and visualizations. Write out my intentions, sending my writing. They're moving fast and furious, so I'm not able to kind of repeat all of them, but I'm seeing some really good ones and some ones that have real clarity. So just consider as you move forward, when you think about specific next actions off of the insights you gathered around aligning your 3 selves for manifestation, what is something that is specific enough that your basic self can support it? Like, what does that look like in action, and by when are you going to do it? because then the basic self can really align around it. And you can also know whether you actually achieved it or not. So this is your basic self, your physical self, really aligning with your conscious and high self intentions in terms of what you want to create more of in your life. So well done. Tell at least one silly joke to someone a day. There we go. Gosh, I wish we had more time. I'd invite you to tell your silly joke right now. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of, well, let's see. Can we bring the slide deck back on, please, if we could? Go to the next one, please. So something we talk a lot about in Insight, the universe rewards action. The universe rewards action. So come off this workshop and think of an action you can take. And then notice what you learn by taking that action. We're going to spend a little bit of time coming back to some.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. So we're going to do just two final things to end our time together. I will share that I'm really grateful and really appreciate that you all showed up. I'm hoping that it was time well spent for you. I hope you got some value from it. Want to thank the assisting team that helped us support in making this happen. Thank you for your service. Want to thank both Ruth and Ginny for joining us as well, and for the support you're doing for the UK community and everybody else. The beauty now is that, you know, it doesn't have to be just the UK that's taking the seminar. We got people all over Europe that can attend. It's a little bit out of my range in terms of time zone, but you know, certainly UK, Europe, that space, you know, people are invited to attend. But I really wanted to kind of conclude by saying, really grateful. Two things I'm going to ask you to do. One is, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to all come off mute and share a few words about what's present for you right now as we finish the workshop. It's going to be a bombardment. It's going to be, you know, lots of energy, but that's okay. You haven't had a chance to talk much except with one another since we started. And if you have any kind of pressing things that are still out there that you'd like some, you know, some thoughts about, you can put those into the chat. So if you have something like, I'd really like some input or some thoughts around this particular issue in terms of manifestation or my intentions, or I might be blocking, you can put those in the chat. We'll kind of capture those, and Ruth might pick up on some of those in the workshop. And again, we can bring some of those into the Insight One. So again, I want to say thank you. Again, you can go into the breakout room with any questions you have about the Insight One. And then I'm going to invite everybody to come off mute and just share a few words in terms of how you are as we conclude our call.
Inspired.
Energized.
Connected.
Grateful.
Connected.
Heartwarmed.
Empowered.
Excited.
Grounded.
Hungry.
Here.
Present.
Elevated.
At the moment.
We're
Just
Enthusiastic.
encouraged.
Inspired.
Seeing friends.
Optimistic and joyful.
New friends.
Inspired.
Grateful.
Clarity.
Refreshed.
My heart's opened.
I feel self-compassion and acceptance.
oh my god.
Joyful.
All right, well, I want to say thank you, everybody. Wonderful to spend this time with you. Hopefully I'll get a chance to connect with some of you in the future. Enjoy the workshop with Ruth. Enjoy the Insight One. And thank you for being part of our community. Have a wonderful evening, wonderful day.